and welcome to another episode of She's the Boss. Today I'm joined by Janette Beetham, who is a workplace dyslexia and SPLD consultant and managing director of Right Resources Limited. Thank you, Janette, for joining me this afternoon.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's nice to meet you.
And you too. So tell me a little bit more about your career. You obviously wear a variety of different hats. How have you come to this point, and what do you do?
Okay, it's quite a long story, but I suppose really the important thing to say is that my career really of what I do now didn't really start until my early 40s, because up until that time I was still struggling with the challenges of dyslexia and other associated neurodivergent conditions. So I really didn't feel that I was very good at anything, and it was really I managed to get to university late, and at first I was struggling and really was going to stop, and then I discovered some strategies for myself that not only helped me, but I also, my grades started to pick up, but I also started to help other students. And at the end of that degree, whilst juggling family, small children at home and travelling to university to do a full-time degree, I did a joint honours degree. I finally realised after graduating that I wasn't stupid after all, and I had real self-esteem issues up until around about then, and it was gradual that I started to realise that there were all sorts of things that I could do. So I suppose really what I would say, that's probably the foundation, that's my driver really, is that there are so many people out there who are struggling, probably don't know why they're struggling. They may know that they have dyslexia or some other kind of neurodivergent condition, but they may not realise that actually that's holding them back. So I don't want people to feel like that. And so my work is very much with personal development for people around workplace so that they can cope more effectively with their work tasks. So if I put that as a sort of foundation to what I do, about 12 years ago, I was approached by the chairman of the British Dyslexia Association and asked to help roll out some new training programs for them. I had a background I'd been an area manager for the Prince's Trust, so I'd helped young people overcome challenge with a variety of disabilities and personal sort of hardship situations, just generally helping people overcome challenge. And obviously a lot of those young people had neurodivergent conditions, but I didn't really know an awful lot about that at the time. So did my training with BDA, and then or built on my training with them, and then started delivering training to parents, teachers, governors, working in schools, colleges, workplaces. But workplace has always been my passion. And so as the time went on, and even though I'm a senior associate with the British Dyslexia Association, I've always worked independently, so they hire me to do that kind of work. And my portfolio has broadened over time, mostly now working in the workplace because that is my passion, having also been a qualified business advisor and also a social enterprise advisor. So that was part of my history. So mine is built on a foundation of understanding a lot about a variety, a cross-section of workplaces and the potential challenges people might face in their work tasks. So that's what I do really. I'm a workplace dyslexia and neurodivergence consultant really, and I also deliver training to workplace needs assessors, so people who go into organisations, work with individuals to find out what their challenges are and who make reasonable recommendations for reasonable adjustments for those individuals. Mm-hmm. So I deliver the training for that. I also do workplace needs assessments, as well as delivering coping strategy coaching for individuals. So there's those things, and also more recently in the last year and a half, I've developed a program called Dyslexia Champions, which is a training program, a training meditation program, so that it's a voluntary role, but people undertake training so that they can be the safe place that people can go and talk about their challenges. And these individuals are approachable, impartial and knowledgeable, so that they can signpost their colleagues to appropriate support in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I haven't stopped for air, have I? You asked me.
No, it's very interesting, and I've got loads of questions I'm waiting to ask. But no, it's good because it gives a grounding and an understanding of exactly what you do and how you came to do it. You said that you suffered with low confidence and you felt that, I guess in your words, that you were stupid. How impactful was coming to that realization that actually you just needed the strategies, and it wasn't necessarily you, and how big of a difference would you say that that's made to your life?
It's life-changing, and I really always wanted to find something that I felt I was good at. So I was always searching, and I always found myself wanting, there was nothing that I felt I was good at. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, it's life-changing. And it's funny because I wrote, I'm also, I have the privilege of being the dyslexia and SPLD consultant for Imperial College London, and I documented my work with staff there, and I always quantify my results. I think that comes from being a social enterprise advisor. I always want to measure the impact. Mm-hmm. And I decided I needed to write all of that up. And I mean, for me, I never thought I'd write an academic paper, but actually I wrote an academic paper. I invited one of my colleagues, the head of equality and diversity at Imperial College, to co-author it with me. And we had that published last June. And when you look at that paper, you'll see that so many of the people who responded to that, who received support, actually used the word life-changing as well. Mm-hmm. Because you don't know what makes you tick. You really don't. It's almost like having a jigsaw puzzle where you've got some of the pieces missing. And once you have that self-knowledge, self-awareness, it's very emotional. I mean, my job, wherever I am and when I'm working with people, I also do group training as well on awareness and how to support a neurodiverse workforce. So that you've got neurotypical and neurodiverse, and so that everyone is included. So it's about inclusivity. I've lost my thread, and that's what happens when you're dyslexic. I've dropped off my memory shelf. Can you just give me the question again? Oh yeah,
no. So we were discussing how impactful and life-changing it was for you to discover that actually all you needed was strategies, and it wasn't really you. It was just how you needed to work.
Yeah. So with my job, I always have tissues handy because it's emotional. People don't realise this really cuts you to the core. You can, it can be more emotional perhaps for a man in his 50s than maybe a female in their 20s. There's all those life experiences of perhaps, there's, maybe, a lot more maybe negative experiences, or there's the regret, there's almost the loss, a sense of loss for that child who wasn't understood. Yeah. It's a very emotional thing. So I always have tissues handy. And although I don't go around hugging people, there is an awful lot of need for that empathy, if you see what I mean, And I certainly never come across, I never want to come across as someone who is talking to somebody like a teacher, because for a lot of people, education may not have been a comfortable experience.
Yeah.
So, with somebody, it's very much a let's discuss the challenges, let's mutually problem solve, let's discuss what might help you cope more effectively. And unfortunately, most people haven't got a good foundation of self-awareness. Once they've got that self-knowledge and self-awareness, then they're able to help with, they're in a much better place to be able to develop more effective coping strategies to help them in their day-to-day. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no, it's fine. I was going to say, from your personal perspective though, for you, on a day-to-day basis, I guess, from once you had that realization to now, what have been kind of the biggest practical changes for yourself? So if you were lacking confidence before, I'm going to assume that your confidence has increased enough for you to be able to go and do all of these amazing things.
I think, I mean, I always have a work plan. I always make sure that I know what I'm going to do that day. And I know that sounds a bit strange. I mean, everyone should have a work plan.
Oh, no, I have one.
But if you have challenges with your short-term memory and working memory, if you don't have a work plan, do your planning at the beginning of the day, you're trying to hold too many things in your head. If you're holding too many things in your head, then you become completely ineffective at all. If you're neurotypical, your capacity for holding more things is a lot greater. So I understand that.
So for those that don't know, myself included, when you speak about kind of neurotypical and neurodivergent, what does that mean?
Okay, if you think about neurodiversity, that means everybody. Every brain is different, diverse, okay, so everybody. Of the neurodiverse population, there's around about 18% of the population who process information in a different way, okay? And that's neurodivergent, okay? And then the balance of that, they are neurotypical, okay? So if you roughly said 80-20, a bit like Pareto, 80-20. So if you say that, then those 20% process information in a way that is not only unique to them, but they may show characteristics of things like dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, ADD, ADHD, some of the characteristics of maybe high-functioning autism. And so there's these, and they also overlap. So whilst we talk about these labels, the easiest way to put it across is the fact that these people are neurodivergent as opposed to neurotypical. Is that okay?
I like the word. It sounds like some sort of kind of superpower. It makes it sound, it sounds good. And I think you're right in terms of labels. Sometimes some of the labels that can be attached to people sound quite negative, whereas that sounds like quite a positive descriptor. And in terms of kind of you said you've had a variety of different roles. What gave you the, I guess, courage to go out and be a consultant and lead, as opposed to just being a member of an organization?
Well, I was made redundant 3 times, and on the 3rd time of being made redundant, when I didn't see it coming, I thought, well, at least if it's going to happen to me again and be without work or whatever, I should see it coming because I'm in control of it now. I also believe that, and it's quite well documented as well, that people who have processing differences like dyslexia, and dyslexia is the sort of main one that they talk about, there tends to be an entrepreneurial flair. And that's because there are also strengths associated with it. There are strengths, obviously it's different for every person, but these are reportedly higher amongst dyslexic individuals than when compared with the general population. And those things are creativity, big picture thinking, problem solving skills, being good communicators when they feel confident to do so, and that's the big issue, the big if and question mark. And when you think about it, they're all the things that you really need if you want to run your own business. That problem solving, also determination, tenacity. I mean, I always, I rise to a challenge because I've always wanted to prove to myself that I can do things, and I think that's really helpful in business as well. You don't get flattened by the first thing that sort of comes at you. You get up, brush yourself off, as you know, and then you carry on. And I think if you overcoming some kind of adversity, it does tend to toughen you up a little bit.
Do you still now feel that you have something to prove?
No, I don't. I don't. That's a really interesting question. Thank you for that. No, I don't. I've never really needed to prove it to anybody else. It was always proving to me. And now, no, I don't think I do. I think having written the academic paper was kind of, wow, did I really do that? I think the other thing was that the British Dyslexia Association invited me to, well, you submit your paper to an international conference, and I submitted it, and I was invited to present it at the international conference. And also, I was invited to be part of a symposium at that conference to talk about the Dyslexia Champions program that I developed as well. And so it was really funny because I was invited to speak in the symposium, and I came off the phone. I said yes, and I came off the phone and I said to my husband, I've been invited to speak in a symposium. I said, as soon as I work out what a symposium is, I'll be fine.
I love that you said yes anyway.
And I'm pleased to say it's okay. Having done those things and actually had some quite amazing people come up and speak to me afterwards and congratulate me and want to know more and things like that. That was quite something for me. I thought, well, actually, I could stop now because, you know, I've achieved something that. And then I thought, no, you don't want to stop because you're driven. I want to get the message out to as many people as possible. There are people out there who are struggling, and if they're struggling, over the long term, it impacts on their well-being. And don't forget, I'm not saying don't forget, but you know, it's 24/7. It's not 9 to 5 or however many hours you work. It's life, and in the longer term, it affects mental health. You know, and so I'm really passionate about trying to get the message out there. And that's why on the Dyslexia Champions program, we also cover dyslexia and SBLDs, wellbeing and mental health, because it's really important. So no, I don't feel I need to prove anymore, but I am.
That's great though. That's progress and that's growth, and it's beautiful to hear. And actually seeing your face respond to the question was a beautiful thing to see, actually. Sometimes we keep going and we don't take the time to stop and reflect about where we were and how far we've come. And I think that the fact that how you started this conversation and saying how you felt to now where you are and how we followed that journey, I think it's an amazing thing. And going back to the beginning then, if you could go back to your, I guess, 20, 30-year-old self before you kind of came to this point of understanding, I guess, your greatness, what would you tell yourself?
Whoa, that's an interesting one. That's a really interesting one. I think I would just say that you're okay. And I feel really quite emotional now.
Oh, sorry. I don't want to make you emotional.
Good. No, it's good because, you know, this is why, you know, it's like touching on a bruise, you know, but I've never really spoken about it like this, okay? Because strategically, you're in a room of managers or, you know, people, and you want to share awareness raising and everything else. You don't talk about yourself because if you've got, especially with the stigma of dyslexia, people erroneously, you know, so wrongly feel that people, it means someone has low IQ, it means they're not capable of doing a job, whatever. So you don't, but that wasn't the reason why I didn't disclose. It was because I did not want people thinking I was on my soapbox and I had issues. Okay? So if an opportunity arose during that training or towards the end of a training or a presentation, I would share, and I've always been quite open about that. But I've never been one to use it. It's never added to my significance. I don't need it. You know, I don't wear it as a badge of honour, and I don't use it as a crutch to lean on either. But strategically, if it was useful to say, then I would have done. But yeah, I think I would just say to myself, you're okay. Do what you feel you want to do. But of course, if you don't have the self-awareness of the fact that you process information differently from other people, if you don't have the pieces of your jigsaw puzzle, then you don't know who you are and what you're capable of. So therefore, I probably, or just telling myself that I'm okay, wouldn't have been enough. It's a bit like a pyramid. It's a bit like a pyramid of, you need self-awareness, you need appropriate tailored strategies, and then your confidence comes. You know what confidence is. It's building, you know. It's not something you suddenly have. It has to be built on a solid foundation. And then when I work with people, you know, what happens is as that pyramid goes up, then their well-being improves, and so their engagement in work improves. Their effectiveness increases, so therefore their productivity increases, and it's a win-win all the way round as that confidence grows, you know. So I think, yes, I could say to myself, you know, put my arm around myself and say, you're okay. But if there'd been, unless someone had been there to share that information and help me or mentor me, it wouldn't have made any difference, Daniela, really. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, because nobody should feel like that.
No, definitely. If well, not if, now you're doing all of these fantastic things and clearly making a big difference, was that something that you specifically decided to do? So did you say, okay, I'm going to become a consultant, I'm going to start this business and I'm going to do this, or did one happen and then the others kind of just happened by chance?
It's really strange, but I've always thought I wanted to be a businesswoman. I didn't know really what it entailed. I really didn't. But in my head, I thought I'd really love to run my own business one day. And I knew that I had things I could share, even before I understood about my dyslexia and everything. So back in the days of Princess Trust, you know, I was doing one-to-one work with individuals, and it was a real privilege because you could see them blossom, you could see them flourish. And I knew that the empathy helped, but also I could help them tap into their own creativity and their own ideas. And I think from that gave me it kind of pulled me through, if you know what I mean. It's working with all of those people and seeing what they could do made me think, actually, I should do more of this and I should build on what I'm doing. And I've always had a sense of community. I've always had a sense of helping other people. I grew up in a household of multiple disabilities, and I was probably the only one who didn't have challenges, little knowing that I was actually dyslexic. But I always knew their needs were more important than mine. So I've always had that ethos that, you know, when you have someone with disabilities in a household, it isn't just that person anyway. It impacts on everybody. So if you can make things inclusive, then it benefits everybody. And so, you know, I've always had that strong sense of community, whether it's micro community as in family, or whether it's everyone around you in work or school, college. Well, maybe not at school. School wasn't an easy time for me. I was a bit of a loner. Class clown, played up, you know, all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's I've lost track again. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, it's fine. You was answering I was asking in regards to you doing multiple things, if that was planned or if it just happened by chance after you left. You was made redundant, you said.
Well, being made redundant, I then moved and worked independently as a social enterprise advisor. Okay, I was made redundant from a social enterprise. That was quite an interesting one. I have to be very careful about what I say about that, because it left a nasty taste in my mouth about social enterprise. Not all social enterprises run the way that they should. Let's put it that way.
Well, yes, I know that from bitter experience.
Okay, and I thought, well, actually, you know, let's do this as a self-employed person. So I started doing it that way. I still had some good contacts. They wanted me to deliver workshops and training and various things like that. And then that's when I was approached by the British Dyslexia Association to work with them, because they were working on social enterprise activities to try and boost the charity, and that's how I linked with them. So it was very fortuitous. I think you'd say serendipity, you know, but I know now it was all meant to be.
Yes, definitely. In terms of time for yourself, do you find time for yourself?
I do. Yeah, I do. I've taken my foot off the gas a little bit more recently because I was doing too much. I mean, I was doing a lot of travelling nationally. You know, if somebody needed me, I would go and do it, and you know, it was taking its toll. And so now I'm doing what I really want to do, and so I'm being a bit more selective in terms, and really my focus now is on dyslexia champions. And those people who I'm mentoring a couple of people at the moment who are doing similar roles to me in terms of workplace needs assessment. And so I mentor them so that if I can't do something, I might ask them to step in for me, because that's always been a big problem. And it's a problem for a lot of people when they start their own business. There's only one you. You know, and people really want you and buy you. So at least you have the opportunity to mentor a couple of people. There's a chance of them not only having your ethos, but actually replicating some of the things that you do in the way that you do as well. Obviously adding their flair, because obviously that's, you know, products and services need to evolve and their input is important. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing now. In terms of time for myself, surprisingly, I actually do quite like to read, and I'm finding more time to read. And now, you know, some years ago I realised why reading had been a problem for me, and now in the right format and choosing the right. Yeah, I love to read. I like to cycle. I did like to canoe until I had an unfortunate incident, nearly didn't come back from it. So yeah, no, that's okay. But it does make you look at life differently. You know, if there's nothing you think you're not going to come back from, then actually it helps you to reevaluate what you're doing. And that's when I decided to then start to be more focused, so that I can spend more time on those things that can then be, you know, I can drop the pebble in the pond and it can ripple out and affect more people. And so that's what I'm spending my time on now, developing those products and services that don't necessarily mean that it's purely me that people need to interact with.
Which is a great, that's one of the key lessons that I try to impart on my clients. You can't be everything, so what can you do to put you everywhere? And developing products and working with other people and teaching them your ethos is a key part of that. What are 3 pieces of advice you'd give to a young person who may be suffering with dyslexia or is, let me get the phrase correct, neurodivergent, and potentially has entrepreneurial aspirations but feels as though they're not equipped or they're not able? What 3 pieces of advice would you give to them?
Oh, that's interesting. There are an awful lot of young people who have the entrepreneurial flair, but unfortunately they may not have been successful in education, and that's one of the reasons why there are a lot of young, well, people in general with dyslexia who are in the prison system. Unfortunately, they've used their entrepreneurial flair, but not necessarily the right side of the law. So, you know, ideally, it's not, a business plan is important, as you know, but it's not necessarily about writing it in words and sentences and paragraphs. It's about getting your ideas down in some shape or form. So mapping it out, ideally, you know, get some find out how to do mapping, just pen and paper. A number of times I've worked with people just to map out ideas, and then they realise actually their idea is good. You know, they can talk through a map so much easier than they can a written business plan. I would say that if they feel that they are dyslexic, there are some free screeners around. If you go onto the British Dyslexia Association website, I believe the Do It screener is still available on there, and there's a free version and a brief version. Also, there's a checklist on there, so they can get a first indication, and then maybe find out if they've got a local dyslexia association, and you know, just find out a little bit more about dyslexia. Unfortunately, all of the support, nearly all of the support, comes at a cost, but local associations do their very best to make that at an affordable rate for people. So local associations are good. Also, the BDA, British Dyslexia Association, has a helpline that people can either phone or email, so they can ask them as well. But also, I would say, you know, go on the Prince's Trust website. They have a business plan template on there that is quite accessible. So once you've done your map, print off. I'm not sure if you can print it off or whether you have to ask for one to be sent to you. But their business plan template is really quite accessible and a really good starting point. And you might be able to apply to them for some startup funding. I'm really not sure about the current situation with that because I'm not involved in it, but certainly asking Prince's Trust for some guidance and signposting would be useful. So I think that's my three things.
Okay, if people want to find out more about you and what you do, where can they access that information?
The website is right-resources.org.uk, and on there the Accredited Dyslexia Champions training program is also on there. There's some videos about what people have said about the program as well. If they're on LinkedIn, that's the best way, really. Link with me on LinkedIn. I love it. It's great to hear from people on there. I have got Facebook and Twitter accounts, but quite honestly, I think LinkedIn works better for me.
Okay. Well, it's been a really insightful conversation for me personally, and truly inspiring hearing your story and your journey. And I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people watching this that are going to get a lot of value. It was a beautiful journey that you took us on, and I really have enjoyed speaking with you this afternoon. So thank you, and wishing you all of the success in terms of moving forward. Thank you so much for inspiring me this afternoon.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. So much, and thank you. You know, thank you for drawing that out of me. It was really nice. You know, you do things like this and you think, oh gosh, is it going to be painful? Not in the emotional sense, but is it going to be question and answers? And you know, can I remember? Because I have problems with my short-term memory, and I would say long-term memory is fine, and you know, various things. And I have strategies. You know, but it's been an absolute pleasure, Daniela. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the very best with what you're doing too.
Thank you so much. And thank you for watching. I hope that you found this interview as inspiring as I have. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. And if there's been anything in this interview that's really touched you or resonated with you, please make sure that you write a comment in the comment box. It's really good to hear what you guys think of these conversations. I enjoy doing them. I hope you enjoy watching them. And please, before you leave, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.